Okay, we're good. Okay, well, good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome back to the second panel of this morning's conference. My name is Karen Kavanagh. I'm the Director for Networks and Regulation of Utilities or Networks and Economic Regulation at the Commission for Regulation of Utilities in Ireland. So I'm very pleased to be here this morning as the moderator. We're a little behind schedule now after the coffee break, so we will try and catch up and keep you all on schedule for the rest of the morning. So the second panel this morning is the EU vision for climate neutrality and the water to energy nexus. We have a very distinguished panel here to discuss this topic this morning. And we're going to kick off with a presentation from Maria Salvetti. Maria is the Director of the Water Area European University Institute Florence School of Regulation. She's a part-time professor and the Director of Florence School of Regulation Water and Waste Area. She's also worked as a water economist and policy analyst for the past 20 years in several institutions. She's performed numerous training programs and academic courses and lectures related to water economics at various universities. So, Maria, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Yeah, it works. I was so anxious that it wouldn't work, but we have a great technical team over there. Thank you so much. So today, it's my pleasure actually to share with you the very preliminary results of a research work that the Florence School of Regulation is currently developing for WAREG. And just before starting, I would like, because there's only my name, on the slide here, but I'm not doing that work on my own. So I want also to take this opportunity to thank very much my colleague, Jandrej Bilka, who is working with me on this research work. This research work is focusing on the role of water regulators to achieve energy neutrality in the wastewater sector. And basically, I'll take you through our very first results and tell you a little bit about how we sort of approached the topic. Obviously, we are very much into this topic of energy neutrality, of course in direct link with the revision or revised, maybe I shall already say, Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. But of course, we believe that it's not only about energy neutrality, there's a step before and there's a step forward. So the step before for us is energy efficiency. We already mentioned in the previous panel energy efficiency and efficiency itself. And there's a step forward, which for us is climate neutrality. So we're looking at these three topics, and we're looking at them with a specific lens, which is the wastewater sector lens, if I may say, so really focusing on wastewater. And we're also looking at those three topics, bearing in mind the fact that the water sector, the governance of the water I shall say the wastewater sector is pretty fragmented over different levels of governance. So going from, of course, supranational with the EU and the European Commission through the national level, the subnational level, and of course the local level. So this is just a little bit to set the scene about how we envision the research work that we're currently doing. So first, a very quick word on energy efficiency and on efficiency, because we've already heard about it in the previous panel, just to let you know that according to recent studies that have been performed, there is indeed some room for efficiency gains and energy efficiency gains. So broadly in the water and wastewater sector, where the maximum, let's say, efficiency gains could represent up to 40% of the current energy consumption, so there is definitely room. And when we zoom into the wastewater sector, the potential maximum energy efficiency gains, or could even reach 60% of the current energy consumption in the sector. So there is room there to do a lot better. And we'll see in the following slides later on what regulators are currently doing to incentivize this search for energy efficiency gains. Now if we, oops, I'm not sure that's the last one. My great technical team, that's not the, we agree that's not the last one, okay. But it's going to be difficult for me, unless I can do it without the slides. Because I mean, I don't see the latest slides that were requested from me. Do you want me to come closer to you so that we can discuss that? Because I don't use the presentation at all, because that's not the good one, or you have the good one somewhere. You don't have the good one. Okay, so let's take down the, so no slides. Thank you. Thank you. You have them. So let me. So this, not this. I don't think that's the. Okay, no. So really no. It's just gonna be you and me and you. Okay, so basically, moving from energy efficiency to energy neutrality and climate neutrality. How do we define energy neutrality? How do we define climate neutrality? Well, there is different levels of governance that are helping the wastewater sector to define those two topics. Of course, there is the EU, let's say, general level, with the Green Deal, with the Circular Economy Action Plan, with so many directives that do exist, that are setting targets, that are showing the way towards energy neutrality, but also climate neutrality. Then there is EU sectoral directives, sectoral policies, and of course, for us in the wastewater sector, we're of course going to mention the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive that is setting targets for energy neutrality. Then when we go to national level, well, countries, for instance, have to develop national energy and climate action plans. So there are some targets that are set in general for the country at national level, and then country can also adopt national sectoral policies and adopt national sectoral plans. Then you go to the local level, and you can have cities that are developing energy neutrality or climate neutrality plans. And of course, you can go also to the utility level, where utilities can also develop their own policies targeting energy neutrality and climate neutrality. So you see the different levels of governance are sort of piling up with legal texts, with policies that are all paving the way for energy neutrality and climate neutrality. But then it's a bit difficult to coordinate all these elements to make sure that the policies remain coherent from supranational level to local level. So there is a role definitely for regulators to play there. There is also a role, of course, for policymakers to play there. So we are already sort of designing maybe let's say the void or the conflict or the overlapping that could happen between the mandate of water regulators and also the mandate of policymakers. So we have dig into deeper into the national level now that we know what's happening at supranational level. And we have reviewed actually the national energy and climate plans that were developed by the EU member states. So that's my colleague Jandrej Bielka doing that. And what we have seen is that in those plans, the wastewater sector is included into the waste sector. The water sector itself is not so much mentioned, so really the efforts are focused on wastewater. And what we have seen is that for the wastewater sector, there is not so much targets that have been set up in those energy and climate action plan at national level, okay? So not so much is done at the national level. So obviously, most of the targets that will apply to the wastewater sector will be done through the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. But there is one example that I think is very interesting to look at, is the example of Denmark. There is a couple of other countries, but we picked Denmark, because Denmark has developed a national policy that is focusing on energy and climate neutrality. And then they also have a very specific plan for their own wastewater sector, with targets that are set for 2030, for 2035. So very demanding targets. And they have also, at city level, the city of Copenhagen has also developed a plan for climate neutrality. And the wastewater treatment plant of Copenhagen has also developed a policy in that sense as well. Meaning that some countries have managed or are trying to manage this coordination between national level and very local level to the utility. So that can definitely happen. Ah, sorry, that's me being fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate. So let me. So let me. Sorry, I should point at you to go back. Okay, so that was the, yeah, not so bad. That was the Danish example. Okay, so now moving on, you know, we talked about the supranational level, we talked about the national level with the example of Denmark. That's quite unique, let's say, in terms of capacity to coordinate. Now let's look at what the regulators are currently doing in their practice to support energy neutrality and energy efficiency as well. So obviously, some of them are already using KPIs, mandatory and regulatory, KPIs, so for energy efficiency. Some of them are also already looking into energy source, so what kind of energy is being used by the utility. So you have some examples of energy production, on-site energy production in the table. Some of them are have started to implement some KPIs regarding greenhouse gas emission, and some of them are currently introducing new KPIs that really relate to circular economic practices in the wastewater sector, meaning with wastewater reuse, for instance, and also let's say the broader uptake of KPIs relating to energy self-production and greenhouse gas emission. Another way to promote energy efficiency that is being currently used by the regulators is through the tariff, taking into account the energy efficiency level that then is being used to calculate the efficient tariff, so through the OPEX, and incentivizing for more efficiency when there is a comparison to overall cost. So that's the case of Bruegel, with an incentive to increase energy efficiency to beat the controllable costs that are taken into account in the budget calculation with this tunnel approach. ARERA, in its forthcoming tariff methodology, so here you have the revenue, let's say the constraint on the revenue. There is this component, which is the equalizing component that you see right there. And within this equalizing component, you have three elements that and one is dedicated to energy efficiency. And in this energy efficiency, so you have the first element is to mitigate the risks of supply choices in terms of costs with a benchmark. The second element is to incentivize electricity self-production that Andrea Guerini was mentioning in his introductory speech. And you have the third element is to encourage energy saving through a sharing factor. So regulators are starting to implement energy efficiency, but also to some extent also energy neutrality tools, whether we're talking about KPIs, we're talking about tariff methodology. And sorry. Yeah. And what's also interesting to look at, so we're really moving, from supranational level to the very local and utility level. What we have noticed also is that utilities are moving fast. And sometimes they are moving faster than the regulator. And we have quite a few examples of utilities that are going to go faster than the legal requirements. So that's the case with Águas de Portugal, which is the biggest energy consumer in Portugal, and they have this strategy of prosumer, so producing the energy that they consume, and even being energy positive, being able to sell some of the energy to the grid with a 400 million investment, with a return on investment in 3 years. And this is not something that is unique, because I've seen also those very, very short period of a rate of return on investment in other cases in France, for instance. So with the mix of energy efficiency, so energy efficiency definitely is the first step. Wind, solar, biogas, hydropower. And the target of energy neutrality is to be achieved by 2031. In Ireland, once again, Irish Water is the biggest energy consumer in the country. There is efforts to improve energy efficiency as well, but here really let's say the strategy or the plan is to purchase green energy on the market with a hedging 2 or 3 years ahead in order to get a bit of stability in the costs. Also, whether the operators are public or private, they do embed energy neutrality and to some extent sometimes climate neutrality into their own strategy. That's the case with Veolia France, aiming to be self-sufficient within 5 years in terms of energy, with 100% of energy produced locally, so either through biogas or solar energy. You have other examples here that I will not go necessarily into details, but just to say that across Europe, utilities are moving really fast, and they're moving towards energy neutrality, but also to some extent for some of them towards climate neutrality. So really to sum up a little bit in 2 slides, the topics that I think or of interest, trying to understand how to move from energy efficiency towards climate neutrality with those building blocks. There are some issues to address. So technical issues, in order to really rip off the benefits of all the energy that is embedded into the wastewater. Well, co-digestion seems to be necessary, and in some EU member states, the national legislation is preventing really to develop co-digestion. So that's an issue, a legal issue, let's say, that will have to be addressed. Technology can help also to extract more and more of the energy that is embedded into wastewater. Talking to a variety of utilities, but also regulators, they are well aware that sometimes there is a space limit to install solar panels, for instance, on the treatment plant facilities, and that's, of course, even more true when we're talking about urban areas that are where the space obviously is limited. The directive is talking about purchasing a maximum share of renewable energy on the market. But when we talk about renewable energy, are we talking about decarbonized energy as well, with the nuclear plants, the energy coming from nuclear plants, being inside or outside the game? This obviously makes a difference. The sector investment priorities have to be taken into account, because the level of, let's say, of maturity, the level of, I wouldn't say development, but that's sometimes the case. The level of development of the sector is different from one country to the other. So obviously, the priorities in terms of investment might be different and will be different in some EU member states. The size of the electricity market for the utilities, the size of the market is very important. You know, with the example in Ireland and in Portugal, with the utilities being the biggest consumer, you don't have, of course, the same market power as in other countries where you're just one consumer among others. And of course, there is a trade-off, you know, to manage between the costs to achieve those energy neutrality targets, maybe those climate neutrality targets, and this will have to be done taking into account the affordability issues that were mentioned into the previous panel. Last but not least, really looking at, let's say, the policy issues, the governance issues, so a very, very quick SWOT analysis with the strength that we have already identified, which is like having clear sectoral targets for the wastewater sector that are set by the directive, having thus, you know, deriving also from those clear targets, we have regulatory mandate and tools for energy efficiency and energy neutrality that are quite clear for the regulators. We see that many utilities are already, you know, going that pathway to achieve energy, if not even climate neutrality. Some of the weaknesses, so I mentioned this mandate that's not so clear for the water regulators with regard about climate neutrality, because it's at EU level for sure, but it's more general targets that have been set through the Green Deal and so on. And also we've seen that the wastewater sector is not always included into, with specific targets, I mean, in those national energy and climate plans. So that can obviously be also a weakness. The opportunities, well, it's time then, you know, we have the opportunity to adjust, to redefine, to better coordinate the roles between the regulators and the policymakers, especially with regard to climate neutrality. You know, if there is a sort of a void or unknown, let's say, share and sharing of the roles, well then this is the perfect time to redefine and coordinate these roles. There's also an opportunity to strengthen the policy coherence on climate neutrality between the levels of governance that I have mentioned with the example of Denmark, you know, that quite well succeeded in keeping that policy coherence across the different levels of governance for the wastewater sector from national to utility level. And in terms of threats, well, as we all know, multi-level and fragmented sector in the wastewater area can hamper the uptake of climate neutral targets, especially between the national level and the utility level. And there is obviously always a difficulty and complexity to align cross-sectoral policies because wastewater happens to be more and more transversal. And there's a risk of voids, if not conflicts, between national and policies and very local policies. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.